Transform Demo! I am the man is crazy! Puka.
And where are these made?
These are made in Taiwan.
Okay.
The company is out of Salt Lake City.
Okay.
And behind the three founding members of this company are three of the biggest names in the cycling industry. One is Dave Weigel, who, when you look at DW Link, those are his initials.
Yep.
The other is Jason Shears, whom I worked with Carbon Wheel Days. He's the starter of Envy.
Yep.
Third is Hap Seliga, who was one of the three founding members of Competitive Cycles.
Ah, okay.
So, pretty heavy hitters.
I mean, I remember in like 97 or 98, somebody did something very similar to this, a Swiss company.
That, and you go back far enough, you remember Mad Max, who rode for Mongoose, right?
Yeah.
He rode an app.
So it has a history, you know.
It does. But now we've got modern manufacturing, modern materials.
Yeah.
This isn't solving for brake dive, which all those were trying to do.
Right.
That was their whole story.
Because the geometries were so steep back then that they had to do something about it.
Do something. This is more about traction and stability. So the axle path is a J-bend.
Okay.
So when you hit something, the axle's going backwards. And then it goes up. So the wheel tends to track the ground better. That's why I'm having everybody hit the curb before they go out.
Sure.
Because the front wheel whirls up and over. The other thing that happens is the offset of your fork actually changes. It's dynamic. So your stability on this improves as you go through travel, whereas a telescopic fork, your stability goes out the window.
Right.
So those are the two key things that can enhance. I mean, if you think about it, the front end of our bike is where all the control comes from. Right. And right now we've got the back end of the bike working better than the front because of the linkage designs that have come about. Yeah. So it's just taking the linkage and putting it on the front of the bike.
Now let's go for a ride!
Boring.
Boring?
Absolutely boring.
That just does it.
It's like riding a Barca Lounger down here.
Yeah.
Don't even need to pick a line.
That becomes the challenge once people they'll email me, I'll follow up with people. Like, dude, I'm just stuffing my front wheel into the gnarliest shit I can
I
find.
just sat in the seat the whole time. I got the bike up to like 30 miles an hour. Very stable. Hit the hardest thing I could find at 30. I didn't even get out of the seat. I mean, I'm used to riding 115 millimeter in the back, right? So the rear did everything. The front, it took everything. I did one drop, which was basically a trench about this deep, about this wide. Completely, I think, compressed the fork or close to it. But I was seated the whole time and did not feel like I was out of control at all.
That's awesome.
Even with my weight, right? That's a pretty big shift of weight forward.
Did you sense what I meant? Did you understand after riding it why I said you don't have to move your weight back?
Yeah, no, I got that.
Yeah.
I actually got it on the climb.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, and normally, you know, for me on this bike, I'd want to add another centimeter to the stem just to pull the weight a little bit more forward.
Because this bike's a little bit shorter than what I'm used to. I usually have my seat back a little bit more as well. But no, it's totally boring. Like, no effort. The climbs are really nice. The fork really works on the climb, and it worked with this suspension.
Yeah, the message, which goes from 110 to 140, and then the shout, which is this, it goes from 160 to 180.
And why were you saying you don't have to move your body or hands back?
Your handlebars stay at the same height. And because the suspension's active from the ground up, when you grab the front brake, your handlebars don't change their position. When you ride this, your bike stays very neutral all the time. With a telescopic fork, as I was saying, it doesn't know the difference between it reacting to something at the ground or you getting in front of it, pushing down from above.
They have forks for inverted. Is that?
Now, what the issue is the issue is on this fork, there's only one way to move the axle, and that's straight up and down. Right? On this fork, there's this J-bend. And you can really feel how it's moving. That was the weirdest part. On the climb, I could feel the axle moving forward, right? So that's why I'm like, oh, I need a longer stem with this, right? I just kind of feel it, because the fork takes less energy to get the fork moving. That fork takes a lot more energy to get it moving.
You're one of the first people that's come back from a test ride and realized the stiction and the dynamic friction on this is a fraction because of the lever, because of the surface area involved. It takes, to activate this suspension, it takes about 2 psi. The traditional system takes about 20 to make active. So what happens is you've got a lot of, I try to simplify it and talk about kind of like the high points to this, which is just basically better traction and more stability. But you also have much less friction, which makes your suspension much more active. So your tire stays on the ground. I mean, that's really the whole point. Your tire stays on the ground more often. Even if your tire loses traction or loses pressure on the ground, you're losing control.
As far as maintenance,
it's incredible. 250 hours is the recommended.
These are what, 50,
with the damper. But the cool thing is, even when we see stuff come back, at 100 hours on a telescopic design, your suspension fluid has changed color.
Yeah.
It's like the oil in your car. It gets heated through all those cycles and it burns. This, when we take them apart 250 hours, they barely look different from new. So it's almost an arbitrary number even at 250 hours.
You pull the cylinders out from the bottom there?
Yeah, so you've got, here is a combination air spring damper. That's the eyelet bolt, that's the eyelet bolt. You drop this front link, that bolt, drop that down and do this and this, literally 5 minutes, and you've just taken out your whole suspension for that side.
So is it for 27.5 and 29?
Yes.
So it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Same fork for both wheels.
We're not married, like I was saying, is regular suspension, the handling of the bike is really determined by the head angle and then the offset, the distance the axle sits away from the steering axis. This, because the axle is dynamic, it compensates for all that. So it actually, no matter if you stick to our, like I said, if you stick to our recommended axle height or axle to crown height and suspension travels, it's going to be an improvement over your traditional system.
What's the weight on this one, just out of curiosity?
So this one's about the same weight as a Fox 36.
Okay.
Within probably 40 grams. Some people have told me they've weighed it and found it's lighter. When we weighed it, we found it to be slightly...
And what about from crown to axle length? Is the height about the same as a 36, or is it a little bit longer?
It's a little bit longer. It's the same as about a Lyric.
Okay. Okay.
So this actually has a shorter axle to crown than a 170 Lyric.
Okay. And then you also have a shorter version of this fork, which is the 140?
Yeah. It's that one over there called the Message.
Okay.
Which is more the trail fork.
Okay. And that's 140, and that's probably what, about a 34 weight?
Little heavier.
Little heavier?
A little heavier
Okay.
than a 34. Yeah.
Okay.